You're on the mic, so you're live. Welcome
On the
back
mic.
to the Fractional Report, brought to you by Collectable Before Opening Bell, episode 741 of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze. Oh my, and I think we have a very special episode for you guys here today. I want to talk about the market. We'll get into the data here with Collectable in just a second. And by the way, nice to see you, Cage. First time talking today, really. Other than a quick 10-minute conversation that might have set us up for the future of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze.
It was a weird one. Normally you have ideas, and at least 2/3 of them, I'm like, dumb, forget it. Get your head out of the clouds. Or dumb, we're not spending the money on that. It is very rare for you to get through 3 ideas. I agree with all of them, and the phone call is done in 10 minutes. Yes, it does not happen. It may not have ever happened before today. So
I think we'll see what comes of it, right? We'll see what comes of it. Cage, here's what I think happened. All right, so I think if we just take it back 12 months, not go back fully, but take it back 12 months, I think the best assets, if you could picture Lior coming on our show talking about, what's counterintuitive about this industry is the best assets actually outperform lower stuff. You guys go back and listen to the first episode with Lior where he talks about that. So the best stuff ran, and it got a little ahead of itself. And I think there was a correction. I think what I also noticed recently, so at the dovetail end of that correction, there was a supply shock. PSA started catching up on slabs, okay? SGC was no longer doing 20-day turnarounds. They were doing 5, 10, 14-day turnarounds. So PSA catching up on the backlog, SGC churning out submissions, and then CSG PWCC reached a partnership, right? So you see the supply shock of all of these cards being graded hitting the market, and it has the anchor effect. So I think it pulled down the best stuff, possibly 20, 30, 40, depending on the asset, % more than it might have should have been pulled down. And I think we're going to see a bounce. Now, dead cat bounce, we'll see. Still a recession, all that stuff. We'll talk about that here on the show. But just anecdotally, that is what I saw, and I'm curious if you're seeing something similar. I'm already seeing a bounce back in this week's PWCC auction. I'll give you guys one example of that. A Curry game-used second-year patch card. I bought that card 2 weeks ago. Now, this is one card. Don't overblow it. 2 weeks ago for $46. It's on auction right now, bid up to $85. All of Curry's stuff has been bid up to the point where the minimum bid and where I bid was maybe 100% more. And still, I was outbid. Now, take it back, and I'll popcorn it to you right after this. There's always that post-championship sell-off, right? Mm-hmm. I think we're seeing that correcting. And if we're seeing that correcting in Curry, I believe we're seeing it correcting in LeBron. We're seeing it correcting in the best NBA players, the best football players. I'm curious what that does to the market. The same thing is happening with Brady. So something I'm noticing, I wonder if it's a bounce. There's national coming up, so people want inventory. I'll stop right there because I do notice an uptick in prices.
I think
across the board.
Curry's a little more specific. My answer for Curry, and it's, Curry didn't have the easiest run to a championship. I mean, a lot of people knew that they had a good team, but beginning of the year they weren't favored to win a championship, and they won one. And then you have an off season, and you have a lot of moves that can be made. And oh wow, we're talking about this one, and this guy could come here, and this team, and this super team, and the whole 9 yards. And maybe people take some profit on somebody like Curry. And what you've seen so far in this off season, especially with the Suns now re-signing Ayton, is that besides the addition of John Wall, who plays an average of 1/4 per season, to the Clippers. I know maybe they get Kawhi Leonard back. He's been load managed since 2016. If I'm somebody who, is a fan of the Warriors, I'm looking at the landscape in the West and saying, all right, we're probably going to repeat. I don't agree with that. I know a lot of these teams have got better, but I can understand why now the Suns didn't get Kevin Durant. You know what I mean? If I were on the sidelines, this would be a week where I would lever back into Steph Curry. Because
why not 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks?
Because there were still other dominoes to fall in the West. The Ayton one specifically is a biggie. You see kind of where things are going, and I mean, it was still could be Durant going to the Suns, and then you're like, maybe I don't want to have the Curry stuff. Plus, you are correct; it's the after championship kind of a little sell off. It happens in a lot of these things after the run up. There's a little bit of a sell off. But you're right though. It's not just Curry. You see it kind of across the board. LeBron, I haven't really seen his stuff kind of come back, and I think
you haven't, or you have.
I haven't. I mean, maybe it's hitting floors, but I haven't really seen his stuff sort of bounce back. I think there's a little more attention being paid towards football and stuff. But I think the point you're trying to make is accurate.
It's the rubber band effect, right? When
a lot of stuff
sets record highs. It pulls the best stuff up with it. When the best stuff or the worst stuff goes down, it also does pull down the best stuff with it short term.
Right.
And I think that buying the worst stuff is not the move. I think now it's the time to buy the best stuff at discounted rates.
Yeah, if you can. And I mean, listen, so pulling that into, to fractional collectible, you have a great quote about the markets and being rational and irrational. You want to drop it down for everybody else again? The markets
could remain irrational longer than you could remain solvent.
So the one thing that we can say about collectible is it's been rational in being irrational. Its irrationality is at least repetitive, right?
Predictable, yes.
Like you always talk about how history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, right? So we've talked about now for like the last probably 6-7 weeks, pay attention to what's really down. Mm-hmm. And what's really down is often next week's really up. Pay attention to what's really up because that's next week's what's really down. It's like an overreaction kind of culture, right? And a couple of the things we mentioned last week when we went through the big decliners, the number one decliner, you talked about it, the Duncan Yao Dirk triple logo man. The number one decliner last week was this week's number one increase. So it was down 63% last week and up 150% this week. Pretty crazy.
I think a part of that card is that investors realize, at least from 06, there weren't a ton of 101s, Like today we talk about how many different 1-of-1s Panini has made. Back then, that is the true 1-of-1. So at the same time, those three might not be the most popular players in the world. They're still up there in terms of revered, and that's the card. That is that card. There's 5, 6, maybe 10 cards of those guys.
But that was that card last week. It was down 63%. It's that card this week. It's up 150. It's just it is a pattern. The number one decliner last week is the number one increase this week. The number two decliner last week we talked about was the Floyd Mayweather Jr. Browns boxing PSA 10. That was number two, down 55%, up 104% this week. And while it didn't make the top three decliners, I called out last week being down 40%, that Warren Spahn 48 Leaf PSA 9, talked about how, low pop it was and the whole deal, and it was up 75% this week. So take a look at what the top three decliners this week were, and if it follows suit, as we've talked about the last couple of weeks, maybe because, and let's get to the reasoning for this, right? When we see these huge drops, it's not because Kobe's sneakers all of a sudden became something people didn't want to collect. It's because on that particular asset, someone or two people or three people who were in it decided that this was the week they wanted liquidity and they wanted to move their money out of that asset into something else. It's very different than how the overall market, the broader market behaves, because right now, this market does not have the same liquidity that everything else does. And the assets themselves are not liquid. Look what we're talking about, right? The triple logo man is a 1-of-1. It's not something that you can see come up for sale in Golden and PWCC. It's here. Collectible has it, and it's not the most liquid thing. Even the Warren Spahn, we talked about how few of those there are and how it hasn't come up for sale in however many years, right? So you want to chat about the three decliners just so that people know them? I mean, this is not us saying that these items are things that you should or shouldn't invest in, but it is something to pay attention to, right? Because this has been the pattern. So what are those three decliners?
I'll talk about the modern one first. It's one we've talked about a ton. It's the Trevor Lawrence 20 card SGC 10 21 Leaf Pro set. So what's interesting about that set was that card came out before Prism dropped and all that stuff. Got graded by SGC, and you have 20 gold label pristine SGC cards in a basket. Cage, do you know off the top of your head what it IPO'd at?
No, but I can take a look.
Does it say what it IPO'd at? Okay, so right now, I'll look at what it IPO'd at, but right now the market cap is $2,000. So the normal SGC10, that means that each card is worth $100 in this basket at the current valuation. The current SGC10, not gold label, just sold for $39, just sold for $30. There's some buy it nows for 28, 29, 20. So it's like let's call it a $30 card without the gold label. It's up to you guys to determine what premium you have from an SGC10 to a gold label, but it's getting right into that territory where it's actually not a crazy valuation. It IPO'd. You guys could go back to our fractional report. We called this out from day one that this is just a wonky valuation. It makes no sense. It's not as true rookie. It's a basket of 20 gold label. What does that even mean? But now it's at a place where if the normal SGC10s are selling for $39, $40, this card is valued at 100 in the gold label. There's 20 of them. Make the decision of what you want to buy or sell or whatever. But it dropped almost 75% the last week. So it was a $5,000 valuation starting out last week. Now it's $2,000. Did I do the math right?
You did. You did fine.
Cool. Next. This is one that Cage called out. And I'm curious if you know the Futera card when it comes to Lewis Hamilton. It might not. It's a bellwether card, in my opinion. I think it does have an effect on the market. And I think that people saw the writing on the wall where the second one got graded and it went from pop 1 to pop 2. So this week we have the Lewis Hamilton top 2020 Topps Chrome orange PSA 9 numbered out of 25 was down 70%. Do you think that was just because it was individually overvalued and it was a correction? Or do you think the Futera card, which I think, do you think it's his main card?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to tell what the cards are, right? I mean, people like Chrome, people like this, this Chrome, people like Sapphire. I think it's his rookie, although, some people would rather have the Sports Illustrated for Kids one than the Futera one. I mean, it's odd, but it's definitely one people watch because it's one that it was the first really, big sale for him. But then the Chrome sold for almost $1 million, right? The Superfractor.
This is the card, guys. Orange, so now we're looking at 9 out of 25.
Yeah, I mean, the thing on this one is it IPO'd, and this is its first week of trading in secondary. And after IPOing, it dropped in its first week of trading 70% from the IPO. That's people trying to get out of it.
For sure.
And F1 had its run. I don't know whether it continues to run. There'll be another year of F1, another year of Lewis Hamilton in almost that exact same pose. Maybe they'll stick a helmet on him. Maybe this time he'll be holding up a glove like Michael Jackson. But I was the asshole that everyone hated when I compared it to UFC. And I said in 2009, the first series of UFC, those cards sold like crazy. I was getting hundreds upon hundreds of dollars for just a base Anderson Silva auto, GSP auto, all these guys, all these cards. And then round 2 came out and it sold pretty good. And then, main event came out. All of a sudden, Anderson Silva's autos were $100, $150. Then Series 4 came out. Round 4, they call it Topps the white box. They just printed the hell out of that. All of a sudden, it was easy to get Anderson Silva auto for $30, $40. Same thing.
It's market dynamics, right? And the thing that came to my mind, and you guys, some of you understand. I think we've built a community where they understand when we bring up topics that are a little bit more borderline, but like NBA Top Shot, when people hear that name, they almost vomit and disregard. But here's why it was valuable. This exact thing played out with NBA Top Shot just in a more shrunken period of time. So there was Series 1 where people would open packs, and the Series 1, the only moments available on this platform that was so in demand were getting bought up. And that run immediately got curtailed and even pulled down when Series 2 came out. It just happened. So we saw that dynamic play out, and it's the same dynamic here.
Yeah, you lose the rarity. And the barrier to entry for people drops, and you're giving people another option. Right, so if you can't buy the Futera for $300,000, you can't buy the first series of Chrome, you can't buy the Dynasty, you get this next series of Chrome, or you get a Sapphire Chrome, or you get a Light, whatever the heck they're gonna do next. And people don't have to scramble and fight with each other to all get the 1 or 2 or 3 that are available because they keep getting more options, right? It's why, while I hate it, why PMGs are, as valuable as they are, because there are hundreds of people who want to get them and not that many of them out there because they only made them for a couple of years. I love 2012 Prism Gold, and I'll shout it from the rooftops how great it is, and it's great because it's the first. But someone like LeBron has 10 in 2012, 10 in 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, and so on and so forth, all the way up to, this coming year. So LeBron now has, over 100, and then they put him in black gold out of 5. He's got golds in select. He's got golds everywhere. So, if you're looking for that, maybe you can't buy the first one. Maybe you can't buy the 2012, but maybe the 2012's price doesn't continue to go up because people can find another alternative. People could find a lower cost alternative by buying the 2013 or the 2018. So,
all right, I'm going to have to put you on the spot because it's been an easy 15 minutes for you. You look like a lobster. I think you spent the entire day out in the sun. I could tell he's fading.
I did. Nah, dude, I got soda. I'm caffeinated.
Soda will not do what you got going on. Aloe is what you need. Aloe and a little time. Maybe a little dirt. Yeah, the cucumbers under those eyes too wouldn't hurt. Dude. But here's what I'm going to ask you. Gun to your head. Unbiased. It doesn't matter. You have a gun to your head. Tony Soprano's holding you, says, you can't take this Jordan Fleer to your grave.
Mm-hmm.
Is the price going from 200 to 300 or 200 to 100?
Oh, it's not going to 100. It'll go to 300 before it goes to 100 because the defenders of the price are coming out now.
Tony Soprano is no joke. He will.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Because you're seeing it 170 and then buyer's premium sell 204. You're seeing it golden again. 170 got bid at 170. We'll see what happens to PWCC. I would venture to say at the bare minimum 170 and then 204. And when that happens enough, it has happened the last bunch of times. People start to realize that if you want to buy one, you're going to have to beat those people who are willing to pay that 170, which is 204. And
is it basically a standoff between buyers and sellers at that price?
Eventually, the amount of people who are willing to sell it for that 204, they'll run out. And the person who's buying it at 204, and I mean, we know one person who we've dealt with ourselves who has double figures of them, has more than 10. And I believe he's buying more of them. And you've seen them in his showcase at National last year. And when you have buyers like that who have a lot of money, right, and they're setting a floor on something, it's hard for it to fall.
Protecting their assets.
They're protecting their assets. But this is what happens in the market, right? I mean, don't market makers come in who own 10% of a stock and make sure that it doesn't fall below a certain level because they're protecting their assets? Now, you don't like that.
I didn't say that.
You've said it before.
It makes me ask a lot of questions about ethics, morals, but then I'm like, if you have the money and you want that card, you're still taking on a ton of risk. Why should you not be allowed to do it?
What's ethics and morals, right? I mean, let's say there's 100,000 shares of Apple. I know there's a lot more, and you think it's worth $100 a share, and you see it falling to 100. You buy as much of it as you can.
Michael Saylor does that with Bitcoin. He does
it with Bitcoin, exactly. So, I mean, is he unethical because he's buying Bitcoin when it dips? No. I mean, he's continuing to protect, his assets and continuing to buy more. So, I believe that's a card that goes up because, I know it's not rare. I know 320 or whatever it's at is not the rarest thing in the world, but it's also not a lot. I mean, they can't just keep coming up for sale all the time. You know what I mean? Because people are just buying them, right? And it'll get to a point where, one person has 10% of them. One person has another 5% of them. And then, people want to grab them. All of a sudden, they start to go up. This happened. This happened last time around, right? And it got too far. It went too far, too fast. So it's resetting.
So I don't know if it applies to your level of cards, but with you remember there used to be so we used to own a Horn and Harder cafe. Some of you guys might know about that, but it was like a nickel for a cup of coffee. Okay.
Nice.
And coffee in the 90s became popular. It was like $2 for a cup of coffee for a while. coffee now in some places is $4, $5, $6. Okay,
Some
sandwiches.
Boints coffee in a cardboard cup.
Yeah, like sandwiches now are 10, 12, 13, $14. Like with the cards that I'm looking at, and I wonder if it has an effect. Like you start to ask yourself, like $10, $15 cards of greats, now they feel cheap. No, it's different than like that same coffee effect. Like inflation, I know we talk about it. I'm curious. We think there's been a run up in cards, but I wonder if inflation actually makes some assets look cheap now relative to what we're paying for other stuff.
I think what you're trying to say is that $100 2 years ago is not $100 now, and that you can't look at cards static. So that, a card you were buying for $100 2 years ago, even though the market has come down a little bit, what else you could buy for $100 in the world?
Right.
Now that $100 has $87 worth of buying power. So does that in turn mean that if you bought a card for $100, it should be worth $115 just to stay static, right? Just to keep up with inflation.
Again, I'm just asking the questions. I think I'm curious if our audience also asks these questions. I think some of our best comments and some of our best voices actually come from our audience who leave comments on YouTube and such. Anyway, let's get back to the show. Cage, anything stuck out to you, or do you want me to go through the top 3 last decliner, which was the Kobe O2 game worn and signed sneakers, down 60%?
So the stuff that sticks out to me is like I want to hear your take on this, right? Like the Spawn from last week, I like to look at just the charts. I don't look at what the card is. I look at like what's down. And if you have the ability to pull up the site, while I tell you this one, I want to know what your thoughts are about this team, this guy. Now, Kawhi Leonard has not played in forever, right? He hasn't played in a very long time. And the team just got a little bit better. And he's going to come back, and the Clippers are, turning a lot of heads at Vegas and the whole 9 yards. But as far as I know, nothing happened to Kawhi this past week. And there's a basket of Kawhi Prism cards, all right? And it's a PSA 10 basket of 30 of them, right? And this is one that IPO'd, I think it was $30 a share. And, it got as high as like 38.5. We can do it. There's 2,300 shares. So I think it IPO'd at like $70,000 approximately.
What do you want me to search?
The Kawhi basket, Kawhi 2012 Prism basket, right? And it traded in the 30s. And obviously he didn't play last year and it trended down. And last week, it has been for the last, several months, the better part of this year, trading around $9 a share. But for some reason, last week, if you just do a 1 week chart, it went from $9.95 to $5.25. So I don't know if that's one person, 2 people exiting, or whatever the story is. But basically now you have a team that got a little bit better. Kawhi's supposed to play. There's 2,345 shares at $5, which means what are we talking about now? We're talking about like what 14,000 market cap on this. You got it in front of you, I think.
I'll pull it up, and I'm going to give you the per asset
30,
price.
yeah, 30 cards, right?
12K.
So 12K market, and it's 30 cards, which is 400 per PSA 10.
Mm-hmm. And recent sales are $590 for one of them.
Okay. I mean, so this is just one. I didn't look at what recent sales are. It's good to know that it's a little higher than that. This is one where at $9.95 last week, it was not a buy. At $5.25 this week, you make up your own mind as to whether or not now it's gone from being high to low. This is one. What's the percentage? $9.95 down to $5.25. It didn't make the top 3 list, but it's still down 40%.
Let me give you some figures, Cage. So
Shoot.
12,300 market cap, 30 of these in the basket. It's actually exactly 410 bucks per card. Mm-hmm. Recent sales on this card on card ladder are $590. So those are figures for you.
There you go. So it's just one that stuck out. You asked what sticks out to me. That stuck out. The Mookie Betts gold refractor basket, which, who knows what the Dodgers are going to do. What Betts had a little injury. He came back. This is one that IPO'd at $61,500. It is a refractor gold basket, BGS 95, I believe, 2 of them. It IPO'd at $10 a share, $61.50, so $61,500. Last week, it was at $7. This week, $3.70 per share, down almost 50%. Another one that did not make the top 3
Gorgeous
list,
card. Let's
and it's
talk
2 of
about
them,
it.
right? I think it's a
For a
basket. I think
long
it's a basket.
Cage, for a long time they were saying Betts or Trout for best player in the league.
Yep.
So, and you have 2 gold refractors, Bowman. This is Bowman or Bowman Chrome? Bowman. Tough a grade.
This is
Bowman Chrome.
These are Bowman Chrome. I mean, this is the Chrome, the gold refractor from Bowman Chrome. This is the card you want from him. It's gold. It's his first Bowman auto, 9.5 with 10 autos. I mean, just gorgeous cards. I
just always forget BGS writes like a novel on the label, so it takes a little bit to read.
But at $370 a share, right? $370 a share. I don't know if Card Ladder has anything on this. $370 a share, and there's 6,100 total shares. What are we talking about? 22,000 ish.
Yep.
I'm just doing math, which means at 2 of them, 11,000 per card. I mean, these IPO'd at $61,000 combined. So these IPO'd at over 30 grand, and now you're talking about it being about a third of that. So it's just one. Again, it didn't make the top 3 list, but when I noticed something like the Kawhi selling for 9 and change that got down into the 5s, this one was selling for 7. It got down to 3.7. It stands out for me. Another one that stood out for me.
Real quick, Gage, let me get you.
Yeah,
so
please.
The closest comp is actually yesterday from Golden.
Okay.
And it's a Bowman Chrome red refractor out of 5. Just sold
Nice
for
card.
$71,000.
Yeah. And the red's nice. Out of 5 is, rare as can be.
Yep.
But, obviously interesting. Interesting stuff. So, yeah, I mean, the only other one that really, kind of like, I don't want to say stood out, too much to me, but I saw the increase in the Floyd Mayweather. So there's a Tyson, the Mike Tyson. You want to pull up Mike Tyson for me?
Easy.
This one here is real interesting. This is the Super Sport Mike Tyson rookie BGS 9 2 times. Now, there have been some recent comps on this that have been a lot lower than what it IPO'd at. This is one that IPO'd $10 a share, $56.50. So it was $56,500 for 2, which is $28,000 per. If you just pull the 1 week chart up on this, I think it went from $4.75 down to $2. So this is one that you would think should be on the highest, decliners, even though it's not one of the 3 we talked about, because it lost well over 50% of its value. It went from $4.75 to $2, and now at $2 per share. And we talked about how at $2 per share, there's 56.50 shares. You're not talking about $11,300 for 2 of them. So we're sitting at less than $6,000 per, $56.50 per. And these were ones that IPO'd at $28,000. I mean, it's basically off 80% from its IPO market cap. I don't know whether or not Card Ladder has a comp on these, but that's one that's down a lot since it IPO'd. Like I said, down 80% from its IPO price, and down significantly from last week, over 50%.
I'm looking. Some of these are a little bit harder to pull up, but I will say, man, I am worried, or I'm not worried. I want to be vigilant, and I want our audience to be vigilant, not to be somebody's exit liquidity. And what I mean by that is, you see a lot of these assets. A lot of these are pretty good, good cards of iconic people that in the last week fell off. And I'm curious. I do not know. Is it a mere coincidence, or is this people who are selling off right now? I don't know. So something to think about.
I think I love what you're saying, right? So I think the way to combat that is to try to find ones that are not. So like, look what we just talked about, Mookie Betts. Mike Tyson's great, but that Tyson cards were never something that people collected for decades. So what I'd look for to balance that out, right, is there something that was down significantly, but it's still something that's been collected for the longest time? Shoot.
So sorry to cut you off. Just real quick, the PSA 8 just sold of Mike Tyson for $6,000. The 1986 Panini Super Sport.
Right. So these are BGS. These are BGS 9s, right? Which and they're selling for less than that. I mean, the market cap is less than that. Can I throw exactly what you're talking about here, which is a little safer asset, a little safer name? Can you pull up the 1968 Topps Mickey Mantle PSA 9 basket? So now you have two PSA 9 mantles. We pulled these up before. These IPO'd at 10 at 3,635 shares. So $36,350 was the IPO price.
59,
which means about 1968 PSA 9, 1968 Mantle. It's a basket. So it means that IPO'd at about 18,000 per card, 36,000 for two. Look at the last week again. I did the same thing, guys. So last week it was 649 and down to, it's a gorgeous card, down from 649 to 505 in the last week, which is what, a little less than 30%, 25% down, right, on this, 20-something percent, which is now Mantle. And this is a card that IPO'd at $10 a share. In the secondary was as high as $10 a share a few months ago. It was actually a little more when it's secondary. It actually got up to $10.40 per share. And now it's basically sitting at half of the price for Mantle because somebody looked for a little liquidity in the last week. This is not, Floyd Mayweather. This is not Lewis Hamilton. This is Mickey Mantle, a card that is, 50 something years old. One of the most collected, players out there in PSA 9, not the easiest thing to get. And now instead of the card being at 18,000 per card, we're sitting under 10. So, I mean, I don't know if you have any comps or recent ones on the 60. I mean, Carlotta doesn't usually do too much in the way of vintage. I mean, you can see if they're there, but 68 Topps PSA 9, I could probably pull up a comp. This is just another one that stuck out for me because it was a significant decrease, but this one was odder because, I mean, I guess I could understand Kawhi, right? Dude hasn't played in a long time. But Mickey Mantle, dropping as much as this one did was a little odd to me.
Our ladder's a little bit tougher with these, Cage, so give me a sec.
It's all right. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that they don't have a price on it because, it's a Mantle.
Yeah. SGC 7 just sold for $540. That's a little bit tougher of a comp.
So while I am pulling up a
PSA 8 is $2,357. PSA 9 valued at $10,121. The last sale was 10-3 on May 31st. There you go. Pop 180.
All right, so this is lower than that now. This is lower than the comp with a low pop. So one last one for you to pull up for me because this is, I mean, it's getting fun. This is somebody, we don't like the card, and it's a card we've talked about a bunch of times, right? But this is somebody who, if there's a card out there that could potentially be taken off the platform, and I've talked about Donovan Mitchell last year. Remember that? We talked about how Donovan Mitchell, his RPAs are now cheap. Who knows where he might go? Now there's just rumors with the Knicks, and his cards were up significantly this past week. I think up like 50% just on rumors, right? This guy just got the biggest bag in the history of the NBA. And while it's not a card that you like or anyone chases, if you're a Joker fan, that 15-16 Prism Joker, that rookie card is on there. You take a look at that one, the Prism's Power Rookie BGS 9.5. We've talked about this card. IPO to 10, 2,300 shares, so $23,000. Last week trading at $750. This week down to $510 per share. It just fell off. Basically that's, what?
It's a nice card, Cage. It's a very nice.
It's a cool. I mean, it's an auto. It's not. It's not something that people specifically chase. But at $5 a share, which is what it's at now, it's half of what it IPO'd at, and it's now sitting at what, approximately 11.5 total value for. I mean, what's the numbering on this?
1 of 1.
It's a 1 of 1. It's a 1 of 1. I'm feeding you a softball here to hit out of the park. This is a 1 of 1. Is it a rookie? Is it a 1 of 1 rookie? This is Joker, Refractor, 1 of 1.
You guys, did you have wine with lunch today?
Oh, come on. Look at this card. So the point here is, the guy just won 2 MVPs. Maybe he's going to win 3 MVPs in a row. And you have a 1 of 1 here that probably people don't know about. And this is one which is weird. If somebody put this up on eBay right now for $15,000, a Joker fan who doesn't know about Collectable probably, oh wow, there you go, boom, I'm hitting buy it now, right now. It probably wouldn't even last the night.
I think you field a lot of offers for it for sure.
Yeah, but because it's on Collectable and people don't even know that it's here, you name it, and now it's at $11,000 instead. It's half of what it IPO'd at, and all this guy has done since since the IPO, since this card's come to market, is continue to win MVPs and sign the largest contract in the history of the NBA. So it's just another one that for some reason, I mean, that's a huge drop, right? I mean, it lost like 30 something percent of its value from 7.5 to 5.1. So again, I don't know what the cards are when I look at the charts and I see, oh, it fell and this one's that one surprised me a little bit. Because
what do you expect from Denver this year? You have Murray coming back. It seems like sometimes with these ACL injuries, they either come back right away or they take what feels like an extended year. So you have Murray coming back, you have MPJ coming back, Jokic as good as ever. The role players have probably had a little more opportunity to play against the best talent. Could this be Denver's year? Is Denver a sleeper?
I got to tell you, man, it's very weird because
you're weird.
I looked the other day, I was listening to Sports Center and they were talking about how, it was Windhorst, right? Brian Windhorst, this guy, and he was saying how the Lakers won like 32 games last year, and that Jeannie Buss came out and was talking about how they'll listen to any offers or listen to anything out there, but they're not going to sacrifice the long term, success of the team for something short term. You name it, and he's like, look, you know what that means? That means she's looking at the roster and realizing that even if Russell Westbrook comes back and Anthony Davis comes back and plays and healthy in the whole 9 yards, what are they going to add? 15 wins. So they go from a 32-win team to 47, and that's best case scenario. That just barely maybe avoids the play-in game for them. Might not. It still puts them in play-in territory. And so they're not going to go, gangbusters for Kevin Durant. They're not going to do. After I watched that segment, I was a little surprised because, I mean, the Lakers, nothing broke for them last year, right? LeBron had a great year, but Westbrook became like a high school player again, and Davis wasn't on the court, and they basically just tanked the second half of the season, it seemed. So I expect them to. So I went on the Vegas odds, which I know you hate, for over/under wins. And unless I read it wrong, it was Action Network that I was on. The Darren Ravel. They do the whole combined odds from multiple casinos and stuff like that. They had the Lakers at 52 wins, and they were one of, if not the highest, over/under win totals for the West. You can take a look at it. I did this, last week, and while I agree, don't agree with that. The point was, all 8 teams that you think might make the playoffs were all bunched up in that 50 to 52, 52 and a half. They were all in there. So what you have there is you have a bunch of parity, right? You have, and we talked about this with the NBA this whole season, how it could have been anyone. And look what happened in the East. Was it going to be Giannis? Is it going to be Miami? No, the Celtics wound up, taking the reins and coming out of nowhere and doing it. Could the Nuggets do that? I don't know what the Clippers are going to be with Kawhi coming back after not playing for 27 years. And, with John Wall, I don't know if he's going to play at all, right? And I don't know what the Lakers are going to do. I don't know whether or not Golden State's chemistry gets messed up without the glove and trying to work Wiseman into
Did you
rotation.
just call Gary Payne's on the glove?
Yeah, glove 2.0.
They got the glove paid.
They got the glove. He did get paid. But they kept Looney, which is what I'm at. Looney. So
Wiseman's going to dominate.
He may, and they could win 85 games in an 82-game season because Wiseman is not good. But I don't know what happens in the West. But what I do know is Joker is awesome. Murray can be awesome. If Porter Jr. plays, there's no reason to think that those guys can't be in the home court discussion, right? I'm not saying they're going to win a championship, but they were very good when they all played together. So I don't know what happens there. I don't know what to expect from them. The West it's the Wild West. Anything can happen out there. So, I just know that what Joker's doing, you were one of the first people to talk about Joker, out loud and not lie about it. I've been on Joker since 2017. No, on our show, you were saying that he was basically better than Luka. If we had an episode where you said, all right, if I'm starting a team, I'm going to take Joker over Luka. And people were like, I said you were insane. I was like, you were insane, blah, blah, blah. Luka had a great year.
Remember that episode?
Yeah.
That was way back.
That was a long time ago. That was before I think he won his first MVP. Because you were basically saying this is the new style of play for a big man. This was before you fell in love with Shaq. This was you were in love with Joker first before you fell in love with Giannis, and before you thought the Suns were going to win everything. No, I'm just playing. But
dude, they've changed the game. I mean, these guys the basketball wasn't like that. Like think about how basketball it was the pick and roll with John Stockton, Karl Malone. It was triangle offense with Pippen and Jordan, and then you had Shaq and Kobe, and you had the Pistons who were defense, and now you have these. I mean, honestly, Harden in a lot of ways changed the game. These ball dominant, stocky dudes who would probably be like a 3, like Luka would have probably been a 3-4 guy. Like he's not that small. He's who are taking the ball up the court, and Jokic is even different because Jokic has Luka's figure, probably a little slower, but he's their point guard. So it's just an interesting
right.
sport.
He's huge. He's like a 325-pound point guard.
It's
you know what I mean. I think I obviously I don't know if he weighs that much. I have no idea what he weighs.
But
I think I just made him Oliver Miller.
He's like a seal, like all over the court.
Listen, they showed some video of him dancing around the fire back home. You know, he's celebrating. You could dance however you want around a fire if you sign a $260 million contract. Good for you. Yeah. So one last one, if it's all right with you.
Sure.
The Negro League Legendary Cut card. Josh Gibson, Satchel Paige, basket. Really cool item. It's just one of those things I just wanted to bring up just from a chart perspective because it just started trading. This is one that IPO'd at $10 a share with 8,800, so it's $88,000 value on it. And, this is one, as we were saying, when it comes out, take a look, at secondary. The secondary on this has basically done nothing but kind of slide. But then last week it went from 6 to 425, which means now we're looking at something that's down 57% from the IPO. So if this is something you were on the fence about, it's a pretty cool item. I don't know, this is one we're not going to be able to comp. I don't know when the last ones of these ever sold. If you're a baseball fanatic like me, this is just one of those really cool items. And it stuck out for me, just from a chart perspective, that now it's fallen below 50% of its IPO. I was looking, I cheated a little bit because, I look at my numbers, I look at my charts. I was looking for a Juan Soto, but no Soto, nothing to speak of because Soto's in the news this week.
I agree. I do think Soto's a buy. You think he's going to go to the Yanks?
I don't think it matters where he goes, really. You know how this works. You get traded. And, all of a sudden it rejuvenates you. Do I think that it matters that the Knicks are terrible? No, but if Donovan Mitchell, the rumor is he's going to come to the Knicks and his cards are up 50%. So the rumor that he's potentially going to come to the Yankees or any other team that's going to compete this year for a championship, that's kind of all it needs. But there's no Soto on here. So, it is what it is.
All right.
I have one question for you.
Yes,
not about the items, although he is on here. I've heard your take a couple of times, but I think the collectible, audience would love to hear your take on this. Is Trae Young no longer investable?
No, he's not. I was thinking about this today.
Well,
so I've been doing a Whatnot show every single day for the last month and a half. Nobody has asked about Trae. No one cares about Trae. People ask for Curry. People ask for Jordan. People ask for LeBron. They ask for Gretzky. They ask for Kobe. They ask for LaMelo. They ask for Edwards. They ask for Luka nonstop. They ask for Zion. Nobody cares about Trae. I'm sorry, but that could change. That could change with a good season. That could change because no one cared about Curry when he had his banged up ankles. So it's up to you. I will say though, some players we talk about cardboard relevant and not cardboard relevant. I think there's a middle ground where some people, when they are cardboard relevant and no longer cardboard relevant, like Cam Reddish, Kevin Knox, believe it or not, was at one point people were
very, very relevant.
Their road back is nearly impossible. Different teams, not the main guy. Trae Young's road back to cardboard relevance is easier. So if he does start winning, he could regain that throne. He's not that far removed.
All right, I'll switch you off to a different sport. I know you love basketball and you're not, the craziest football, but this is more of just markets. Patrick Mahomes has a lot of assets on Collectable. All right. And a lot of them have been beaten up, not just on Collectable, but across the board. Mahomes cards are significantly down. I think that is because he lost a weapon. He hasn't won in a bit. What are your thoughts on Mahomes?
Someone wise once said, I compare Brady to Kareem and Mahomes to Jordan. So we'll find out if Mahomes is the Jordan, because everyone's talking about Herbert, Burrow, Tua. These guys are, in reality, quite inferior to Mahomes. Like, you could just watch the game, bro. Mahomes is pretty incredible. Like him or not, the dude is freaking incredible, and he has been. So
I like what you say. I was hoping you were going to go a different way so we could have a little bit of funny banter. I was hoping you were like, he's done, he's cooked, momentum. He was high, but the dude is young, has already won the MVP and the Super Bowl. So none of these other guys that we're talking about have that. Not the Burrows, not the Herberts, not the Josh Allens. They don't have one of them, let alone the two. The only guy that does have Lamar Jackson, nobody cares about because nobody cares about him. Mahomes, I think, has one of those potential redemption kind of seasons, even though it doesn't need. He's played at the highest level the whole time, but his cards have been beaten up because
it feels like a redemption season.
Well, because he lost a weapon, and people are basically now saying, "All right, we're not going to believe you can do it without Tyreek Hill until you can show us that you can do it without Tyreek Hill." So, what happens if in the first 3 weeks he goes out there and has 5 touchdowns, no interceptions per week? And they're 3-0, 15 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he's running the ball and he's looking better than all these other guys that are now Tua. Everybody's all of a sudden people are going to be clamoring for Mahomes cards again. So there's that to kind of keep in mind if you're, if you're looking for another place. Shoot.
With McNabb and Westbrook, Andy Reid took the Eagles to 9 playoff. Let me just read this for you guys. 9 playoff runs, 6 division titles, 5 NFC championship games, and appearance in Super Bowl XXX1X.
Where Terrell Owens owned that Super Bowl, and they still lost.
With a broken leg. But that's McNabb, dude. McNabb used to throw the ball into the ground by accident or on purpose. My point is, he still has the system, and he has the quarterback. And until you break that up, it would not be something I bet against, right? You have Herbert, amazing. But they're not proven. Burrow, okay, was it a fluke run? We'll find out. Tua, I mean, come on. Jalen Hurts, prove me. But Mahomes has what he has, and I think it'd be foolish to count him out. Real quick, one IPO to take a look at. There's been 2 sales of this card since his championship: 34.8 and 28.8. One was both auctions, June 17th, June 25th. It's the Curry PSA 10 Topps paper gold out of 2009. There's only 20 copies out of 2009 ever printed. 1% gem rate. Beautiful card. Topps paper is just literally the hardest card to get a 10 on because of the painted borders and gold, black. Doesn't matter. 20 PSA 10s. There's one up for IPO, early access through the app for $32,000. Right in the middle of that IPO price. Something to look at. Do you think Curry's trending up, trending down? There's 2 recent auctions where one was 28, one was 28.8, and the other was 34.8. So one was a new label. Both were new labels. So make your decision. Is that another episode? Any final words, Cage?
Oh man, I mean, I think you've crushed it here. You've done well. There's a couple cool items here to look at. Hope you enjoy these episodes. You got all the data before the opening bell. Thanks, everybody.
So thank you all for listening to another episode of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronzo My. I wanted to tell you about a new service that we have starting as of today, and I'm really, really excited to bring it to you guys. So as a part of our partnership with SGC, we got 50 free submissions every single month, and many of you have taken advantage of that. And it's amazing that we could have the opportunity to 650 episodes, 675 episodes in, to go ahead and give back to our community. As people were sending those cards in, they asked, can we send 5, 10, 20 more cards to you guys? We'll pay for it, but we wanted them graded with SGC. You guys know SGC is turning cards around in 13 to 14 business days, have incredible customer service, and they're Secondary market values are going up day after day after day, and that's exciting for the hobby and exciting for the grading landscape. So we didn't want to just rush into it. We wanted to do it right. And what we did was I relocated here to Boca Raton, Florida. I opened up a P.O. box maybe 5 minutes away from SGC, and I will be hand delivering and hand picking up the cards. So you don't have to worry about anyone else touching your cards. It will be me, and I will update you every step of the way. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to personally pick up the cards from a P.O. box, prep them, new card saver, new penny sleeve, and deliver them to SGC every single Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Well, it lets the stragglers over the weekend come back through on Monday and gives me a day to prep, and it basically gives SGC the entire week to work on grading those cards. Once your cards pop, only then at the end of the process will you be paying for the service. It's $25 per card, simple as that, and the turnaround times have never been faster. We're hearing right now 13, 14, less than 20 business days. So there it is. 9170 Glades Road, number 135 is the P.O. Box in Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. 9170 Glades Road, number 135, Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. Of course, you could shoot me an email or shoot me a text anytime, and I'm always available. Many of you already have my email. It's iamandrewgoldberg@gmail.com. or my cell phone number 215-519-9154. Reach out with any questions. I could walk you through the process. I've hopped on the call with quite a few of you, and I'm happy to do that. Love you, Luca Nation.